Hello everyone, and welcome to another Top 5 Records video. Do you know that feeling that you're holding a record and you're just wondering, is this gonna sound any good? Now, in this video, I'm gonna tell you the 10 names that if I see them on the stampers, in the Deadwax of a record, I'm gonna buy it. Of course, the artist should be interesting and the title of the record should be interesting. But if I'm doubting and if I'm not connected to internet and can't look up which is the best pressing, if I see any of these names, sometimes I don't even have to check online because these names in the Deadwax, they are guaranteed for good quality vinyl. I'm gonna kick off. Number 10, my first piece of advice. It is Blair or Mr. Blair. Now, this is Chris Blair, and he's been working in the UK, and he's been doing some great work. And the first time I found out about him was through A Night at the Opera. I was looking for a good sounding copy of A Night at the Opera, and I saw that a lot of reissues were being for sale, but Queen never really went down to getting really good remasters. Some of the recent remasters were done by Bob Ludwig, but they pressed the stuff that was meant for CD and Spotify and vinyl with not the dynamics that you want. I don't believe he got hold of the original master tapes, and Ludwig is a great name. But if you want a good quality pressing, go for Blair or Mr. Blair. And when I find out about Mr. Blair, and it's not only the British vinyl, these stampers have also been sold. This is actually the first record that I ever got. I was 14 years old, and I listened to this. A Night at the Opera within the Deadwax. I can't show you Deadwax, right? Within the Deadwax, the name Blair. And it is just stunning quality pressing. And whenever I find the name Blair on a Queen album, or he also done great stuff for a magazine and Steve Harley and Company Rebel, his pressing of Psycho Moto is just spectacular. If it's Blair, I'm gonna buy it because in the world of Queen, very much in the world of Queen, he is your safest bet on getting not just a good sounding copy, but the best sounding copy. At number 10, Blair or Mr. Blair. Number 9, not the name of a specific mastering engineer, but just Sterling in the stampers. When it says Sterling, you can expect a very good sounding copy. For example, they did this, the original pressing of Harvest, which is just beyond belief good. But not only that, they've been doing so many stuff. Led Zeppelin, Rainbow. Recently, they've been doing this Atlantic 75 45 RPM series, and I'm leaving the specific audiophile labels out of it because they are very open about who the mastering engineers are. Audiophile market is much more open about sound quality, so the quest is not there. When you're just final hunting and you see Sterling, yeah, you know, I dare to do it because then it's at least good. Not always per se the best. I had an experience about a month ago that I uh, I saw Sterling in a Deadwax of a Frankie Goes to Hollywood copy. Welcome to the Pleasure Dome. Bought it. It sounded spectacular. But then I found a first UK pressing. I went online and I saw it. Steve Huffman from people talking about, yeah, the first UK is even better. Indeed, it was. The first UK was even better. But I found a copy for $8 and it said Sterling. I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna buy it. Same thing with Rainbow on stage. I already had 2 copies, a first UK, a first Dutch one. But I found one that said Sterling, American Mastering. And if it's $8, I'm gonna buy it. I just want to experience it. There are a big company right now. They have a big name like Ryan K. Smith working for them. Back in the day, they even had Bob Ludwig working for them, Robert Ludwig. And when it's Sterling in a Deadwax, you're safe. Oh, they also do a lot of the Taylor Swift stuff recently, so that's good. At number 9, the name Sterling. At number 8, it is the Artisan logo. If I see the Artisan logo, then you're gonna get a record that's been mastered by Artisan. And I'd love to show you the Deadwax. You know what? I'm gonna give it a shot because the Artisan logo is it's tough to describe. There are two rounds with like two lines getting in there, almost like an arrow going into vinyl. I'm not sure if you can see this, but right here, yes, it's that. I'm not touching the grooves, not touching the grooves. But for example, what I'm holding here is an Exile on Main Street, very good condition. British vinyl, but there's also American vinyl. And the difference between this and the other pressings of Exile on Main Street is just staggering. Artisan did such an amazing job on this pressing. And not only this one, they have been doing so many great records. The American pressing of Piano Man, the American pressing of American Beauty, the first pressing, it is astonishing. Original LA Woman, something like Overnight Sensation by Frank Zappa. Some of the pressings that they have done are the best, and some of these records have been reissued and remastered over and over again, and just nothing compares to some of the original work they have done. When I found an Artisan logo, I just assume that I'm safe, and I've never regretted buying an Artisan. So at number 8, Artisan. At number 7, this is a recent. I found out this pretty recently. It is 320. So when you see 320, after about 1979, I believe, until 2005, it's a pressing plant in Germany. Now, their in-house mastering engineer is just really incredible. About a week ago, I found this. I wasn't even that conscious about 320. But I wanted to have this soundtrack, The Burning Rick Wakeman. I love that film. I love Rick Wakeman. And I put it on. It's just a staggering sound. Staggering. Great mastering job. I thought, oh, okay, I'll buy a German one. Can't get a UK or I won't find a UK or US. I'll settle on German. But it's of a spectacular audiophile quality. The mastering is, and the thing is, this is not even the thing that they're most famous for, because at the end of the 90s and the early zeros, they were pressing a lot of stuff for Universal. So they got a lot of the Universal master tapes. Think about some of the following names, like Soundgarden, Nirvana, Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction. So they got master tapes and late 90s, early zeros, just before the Universal fire. They used these master tapes to make some astonishing pressings. So if you find these 90s names with 320 on them, you're very likely, like in the case of Soundgarden, to get the best sounding copy. It is rather unknown in certain ways because some of these 320 pressings, they just still go for about 20 or 30 bucks. Some of them have become famous, but for example, this weekend I got this Soundgarden, still with the seal around it, with the vinyl re-release master from the original tapes. It sounds astonishing. This is really, really good. And that's what they've been doing. 320 is an incredible company. So if you find a record and it has 320, you're in for a pure treat. Then on 6, I have George Beckham, but he goes on pseudonyms. That's an English word, right? Also known as Porky or Pecco. And the first time I found out about Porky Pecco is with Deep Purple's Made in Japan. Whenever he's in the stampers, and you have it with first UK's and first Dutch pressings, again, sometimes they just ship the Dutch the British stampers to the Netherlands, sometimes even with American ones. And then you have good Dutch vinyl with, though slightly used, but with stampers from example, George Beckham. This is a UK pressing, but I also have a Dutch pressing with these dampers. It sounds spectacular. I have a first UK pressing of Unknown Pleasures, a Joy Division record with Pory PCO in the dampers, and it blows you away. There's so much definition. There's so much going on, and so much more records. The Buzzcocks, a beautiful pressing by of Electric Warrior from T-Rex. Um, Fear is a Man's Best Friend. He even did some Led Zeppelin work, and if you get a Pory PCO, you're in for a treat. So, at number 6, Pory PCO. To number 5, something I discovered about a year ago. That's the thing. Some of these big names that you get on later on the list, I found out early on about while record hunting. Some of these, it's just you find someone, and then you find that there is a coherence in very good sounding pressings. And for example, this one, Harold T. Moss, I found out about him by this pressing of Pink Floyd Metal. It is not the first pressing. I believe it's even the second or fourth. I'm not quite sure. Thing is that I read online that in the UK, if a band became more and more found a bigger public, sometimes they would, for a reissue, give Harold T. Moss a chance at mastering. And, well, a chance because they knew that he just had an incredible sound system. This Pink Floyd Metal is one of the best records I have in my collection, sound-wise. It's also obviously a very good record. But the delicate sound, the structure, is just astonishing. I did not know what I was stepping into when I put this on. Also, this copy is near mint, so I'm pretty happy. But this is not the only Pink Floyd album he did. He did the sixth pressing of Atom Heart Mother, which is blows your mind. He did the famous fifth pressing of Dark Side of the Moon, and I did a video about the best pressings of Dark Side of the Moon a while ago. It ranks very high. The thing is with Harold T. Moss, and suddenly out of nowhere on a British reissue, you have a sound that, I mean, this blows the original away. This blows the first UK pressing head clean off. And it's not just with Pink Floyd. His UK first pressing of The Man Machine is clear competition for the Dutch of the German pressing. Thing is, the UK pressing of The Man Machine has the English vocals and the German one, the vocals. So gotta have both. But Kraftwerk German pressings are astonishingly good. That Man Machine is just good competition. He also did a very good stereo version of Revolver reissue by the Beatles record. Those kind of things. He does these reissues that out of nowhere just sound spectacular. So on number 5, Harold T. Moss. At number 4 is the Mastering Lab, also known as TML. First time I found out about TML was through this gorgeous pressing. I just couldn't find a good pressing of this record, Sticky Fingers by the Rolling Stones. A friend of mine even brought home to my place. It's not his home. A Mobile Fidelity Sound Lab pressing of it, and that just they boost the bass. There was so little information in the mid and in the high. It was completely unbalanced. Did not have the punch. Did not have the detail. I listened to a lot of the copies of Sticky Fingers, bad reissues, and then I found online that the Mastering Lab did the original mastering for the record. Now, the first pressings that got made were the German ones, and after that the British ones. But you can find TML on both the German pressing and on both the British pressing. I have a couple of these at home. The German one sounds just a little bit better, but if you can find a clean TML of Sticky Fingers, that's all you need. And it's not just Sticky Fingers that he did. There are so many. The Mastering Lab is not a he. There are actually two persons, Doug and Sherwood Sax. I always think about Doug Sax because everybody keeps referring to Doug Sax, but it's actually Company of Two Brothers, Duck and Sherwood Sachs. Man, have they done incredible stuff. The Sticky Fingers, Dolly Parton, Linda Ronstadt's, and Emmylou Harris's trio. They did some stuff for Billy Joel. They did a very good edition of reissue of Queen's. No, not a reissue, an original actually. But the original had different stampers. If you find Queen's Sheer Heart Attack in an early copy and it has TML, you're good. You're good. They're very good. Their version of The Wall is just slaying it, to talk in Gen Z terms. Really, really great. Just last week, I found an American copy of Toys in the Attic by Aerosmith. I do like Aerosmith. I never really started to love Toys in the Attic. I have a first UK copy. I thought, yeah, what's the American? Okay, it might be interesting to have an American one. But will it beat the UK? I'm not so sure. I open it and I see TML in the Deadwax. Then I look at the price, $8 for TML first US of that record. Yeah, I buy it. It sounds spectacular. So you can trust the mastering lab. TML in the Deadwax. You're gonna have a great time. At number 3, yes, at number 3. Bernie Grunman, also recognized by the BG. Bernie Grunman's been mastering, I believe, even since the late 60s, but most of his best known pressings come from the 70s or 80s. And then there's, of course, the entirely current wave of audiophile labels. And on audiophile labels, they are very open about Bernie Grunman. But talking about the 70s and 80s period, if you find Bernie Grunman mastered something, you always bring it home. You always bring it home. Joni Mitchell, most of the Joni Mitchell albums, the original pressings and these box sets just here behind me are Bernie Grunman's, and it's just spectacular audiophile stuff. Both the OGs, both the reissues. He did a version of Asia, the Steely Dan record, original and the recent UHQR. He was such a big name that I believe it was 1982 when Michael Jackson was working on Thriller, and they wanted to test press him because they had a lot of songs on there. And then they asked Bernie Grunman, like, "Can we do it?" Bernie Grunman took a look at it and he said, "Yeah, well, I advise you not to do it, and you know what? But don't take my word for it. I'll give you a test pressing." And they listened and they thought, well, will the sound of this record get better if we ditch that song? Yeah. So they ditched the song. One of the best-selling albums, his track list was altered because Bernie Grunman fought for the audio quality of it. So, I mean, but not only that, he also did original Prince albums, Supertramp albums. When you find it, it's going to be spectacular. Bernie Grunman. And I'm going to do a top 25 best Bernie Grunman mastered albums very, very soon. Just as I did with the number 2 of this list, Robert Ludwig, Bob Ludwig. I did a video about his 25 best mastered albums precisely a week ago. This is his famous Led Zeppelin, the Hot Stampers. Yeah, what to say about Robert Ludwig that I didn't already say in the video that you really should watch. You can find it on my channel. It's just insanely good, and I will buy an album if it's Ludwig mastered, even if I'm in doubt. I had it last week. I have one. I have an example here. A friend of mine said I was at a record fair. And a friend of mine, he said that he found some Madonna and Like a Virgin. He said, yeah, they have it for about $8. I said, yeah, Like a Virgin. That's not, I mean, €8 is a fine price. You can find it for 10, sometimes 15, but you can also find Like a Virgin for $5. He said, yeah, well, okay, I just wanted to let you know. And then he pushed it in my hands, and I thought, yeah, I'll have a look because I knew Ludwig mastered her later album, like a prayer. I thought, I'll just check the stampers, and then I checked the stampers, and I was uninterested until I saw, oh yeah, RL for Alstorf, and yeah, for $8. Will I buy a Madonna album for $8? $8, not so sure. Will I buy a Robert Ludwig album? Yeah, for $8, I buy a Robert Ludwig album just to find out what it's like. And honestly, it gets me closer to Madonna. It's a great album. I enjoy it. It's great mastering. Number two, RL, the initials of Robert Ludwig. And number one, and this is always, I've bought records with his name that I didn't even know the artist, because this is the big, big legend. His name is Rudy van Gelder, who was of Dutch origin, or at least his parents were of Dutch origin. But he's the big man behind Blue Note. I'm not holding up a Blue Note album right now, because a lot of the Blue Note collectors already know that if you want a Blue Note album from before the 80s, if it has Van Gelder in the stampers, you're good. And it's valuable. All of these Van Gelder stampers are valuable. Sometimes you have an RVG, sometimes just Van Gelder, but it's good. He recorded those albums, he pressed them. But not only the ones that he also recorded are good, it's also the ones that he just mastered. I have some Charles Mingus records here that were mastered by him that are astonishing. And Charles Mingus wouldn't let Van Gelder near him in the studio, because they had very different ideas of how you should produce an album. He did allow him to master them, and it sounds spectacular. Here I have one of those very special things that I just really love. This is one of my, again, best sounding pressings in my collection. This is Saxophone Colossus by Sonny Rollins. And when they asked Bernie Grunman in an interview, what do you think is the best sounding jazz album? He said this one. This one. But an original, an American original, will cost you about sometimes more than $1,000. It has a different cover, by the way, the American original. This, however, is the first Dutch pressing done by Artisan. And they got the stampers. They got the original Rudy van Gelder stampers. And when a mono needle slits on that, it is just beyond any doubt beautiful. I'll also do a top 25 of best Rudy van Gelder mastered albums, because you're in for such an incredible treat with Van Gelder. So, those are my 10 things to look for, names to look for in the stampers. And I'm really curious. What do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Or, and that's for me very important, do you have other names that you found out whenever this company or this person did a mastering? It's always good. First thing that pops up in my head is George Piros, but I don't always think George Piros does the best one, so it didn't make the list, the top 10 list. You might think about Kevin Gray or Chris Bellman, but I really focused on the names that you find in old vinyl, and that you can find by accident. Like they were not press marketed as made by these mastering engineers. Whenever it's Kevin Gray, whenever it's Chris Bellman, or whenever the last couple of years it's been Bernie Grunman, they could put it on a sticker, or they market it. They're proud of their mastering engineers. So it's not a discovery. It's not something to look out for in the Deadwax, unless you got these old Bernie Grunman masterings. So I left Kevin Gray and Chris Bellman out. This is not a top 10 list of best mastering engineers. It's a top 10 of, and I hope you can give me some other names here below. If you find this is the Deadwax, you're in for a treat. You are in for a treat. So I'm curious. Leave a comment below, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.